Smith and I are indeed very happy to have the privilege of being with you and being with our children today. Distance is so great that this does not happen very often. This is the first time that Miss Smith has ever been out west. I was here once before. We're delighted to be here and delighted to have the privilege of worshiping with you in this hour. We read the text from the 29th verse of the 25th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel. He that hath, to him that hath shall more be given, and he shall have abundance. But he that hath not shall have taken away even that which he hath. It is against the background of this text that I would like for us to think for a while this morning about the question, how is life going to reward me? What am I going to get out of life? When Ulysses S. Grant was a very small boy, a neighbor had a pony for sale that he was offering to sell for $25. Young Grant wanted the pony very, very much. His father told him that he could go and offer the neighbor $20 for the pony. If he wouldn't sell it for $20, then he could offer him $22.50 for it. But then if he wouldn't sell it for $22.50, then he could pay $25 for it and buy the pony. Boy very proudly set out to the neighbor's house with the money in his pocket, and when he got there, he said, Papa said I could offer you $20 for the pony. If you wouldn't sell it for that, I could offer you $22.50. If you wouldn't sell it for that, then I could pay you $25 and buy the pony. Here's the money. Now somebody said the boy was foolish, but I think there's a great deal of wisdom in what he did. There was a prize that he wanted, he had the price, he paid the price, and he possessed the prize. So there is a truth there that might be valuable for all of us as we face life with all of its questions and its perplexities. What am I going to get out of life? There are many things that we want in life. We want happiness, we want health, we want friends, we want security. We want many things, but we haggle about the price that we're going to pay. We want a bargain. There are no bargains in life. So what can we expect from life? Jesus lays down the condition in the parable that was read this morning. Each has been given certain talents, and what we get depends on how we use these talents that have been given to us. The first and the second man have like commendation. The third might have had the same. The fact that they didn't have, that an unequal amount of money had been given to them had nothing to do with the commendation that might have come to them. To he who hath shall be given, and he will have more. But he that hath not shall have taken away even that which he hath. Now what is Jesus teaching in this story? There are three things that we want to lift up this morning. The first is that we get from life in proportion to what we put into it. Men are of equal worth, but they are not of equal ability. And each is rewarded according to the use that he makes of what he has. The 5-talent man was not penalized for having 5 talents. The 2-talent man was not criticized for having less. Both had done their best with what they had, and they had invested to the maximum. Now, most of us would get more out of life if we were willing to put more into it. We have more than we use. But we need to invest the maximum and get the maximum returns. It is how we use what we have that makes the difference. When I was a student in college, I had a very dear friend. He was a very brilliant student. It was our practice throughout the year, to each day, to study our math and our Latin together. That was a very great advantage to me because he was much better in both subjects than was I. He was a great debater. He had a legal type of mind. And we talked about the time when he would be the Chief Justice. And he had the gifts to become the Chief Justice. But he was not willing to take the time to pursue the study of law, so he wanted something more immediate, and he decided that he would teach. And he went out and got a little school to teach. He wasn't happy, and the people were not happy, and at the end of 1 year he went to another school. And he was not happy, and the people were not happy, and at the end of the year he went to another school. And he followed that practice for a good many years until I finally had sort of lost sight of my friend, and I really didn't know where he was. One day my doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there he stood with his wife and their daughter. He said, I was just passing through, and I just stopped to speak. I haven't been very happy, and life has not rewarded me like I thought that it would. I've been disappointed in what it has meant to me, so I'm just going back to the old mountain farm. Well, he went back to the old mountain farm. And more than 30 years have passed since that day, near 40. And he's still at the old mountain farm, and today he's a cynical old man, old before his time. And his constant complaint is that life has been disappointment. It has not rewarded me as I expected. You get out of life in proportion to what you put into it. And if you have the talents to do more, you'll never be happy unless you do more. Now let's sit over against that another story. I was in the seminary in Emory University one day. We had a bright-faced young freshman to come. He came out of a circuit mountain Methodist parsonage in the mountains of East Tennessee. He wore a smile, he had a broad face, and he was registering, and the registrar asked him about his finances, and he said, Sir, I don't have any money, but I did come to go to school. He went to school, he served tables in the dining hall. I had a great deal of contact with him because he and I served tables together in the dining hall. And he always wore that smile. It wasn't very long until he was a leader in his class. He graduated from Emory University with such distinction that the university employed him as a professor and sent him out to Emory Junior College at Oxford, Georgia to teach. A little bit later, they promoted him, sent him down to Valdosta, to Emory Junior College in Valdosta, as the dean. A little bit later, they transferred him back to the big Emory campus on Emory University, and he was one of the outstanding professors there. A few years passed until the trustees of Duke University were looking for a new president for that great institution to lead that institution in a great program of expansion. They laid their hands on Dr. Hollis Eden. He was elected president of Duke University. The last time that I've seen Dr. Eden, we met up at Lake Junaluska on one occasion. He slapped me on the back, called me by my first name, as he had done in other days, and he said to me, life has been more rewarding to me than I ever dreamed of. I never imagined that so much would come to me. So much joy, so much happiness, so much distinction. Such a privilege of service as has been mine. Life has rewarded me beyond anything that I ever dreamed. You get out of life in proportion to what you put into it and the way that you use the talents that have been given to you. Rewarded according to the use that you make of what you have. God is not interested in reducing men to a common denominator, but he wants every man to get the maximum returns from the maximum investment. Now the second thing that we want to notice about this lesson this morning is that we lose what we do not use. The man with 1 talent went and buried it in the ground, and he gave 2 reasons for doing that. He said, I knew you was a hard master and I was afraid. Fear kept him from investing. He showed no faith. But the master took the talent from him and gave it to another. We don't want idle money lying around. It ought to be drawing interest. It ought to be used. So take the talent from him and give it to somebody that will use it. Give it to the one that has 10 talents or the one that has 2 talents. Because he that hath shall more be given, and he shall have abundance. But he that hath not shall have taken away even that which he hath. Now this is no arbitrary judgment, it's just plain law. Do nothing, you lose your talent. Now many a service is not done because of buried talent. Men fail because of a miserly attitude that they have. Sometimes so anxious to keep what they have that they lose it all and lose themselves along with it. No matter how many talents that you have, the same principle holds true. There is the story about that ancient king that comes down to us. He had the vial of precious ointment, 1 drop of which would either restore or prolong life. One day a mother with a dying child came and asked for just a portion for her child, but she was denied. The king said, it's too valuable, I must keep it for myself. One day a condemned criminal asked for a single drop, but he was denied. The king said, I must keep it all for myself. But then one day the king was dying, and he ordered his servant to go in haste and bring the vial of precious ointment, break it open, and empty the total content upon his body. But when he opened the vial, it had all evaporated, and not 1 drop was left. What we have must be put to use if it is going to be fresh and going to be kept. So often we are so anxious to keep what we have that we lose it all. Now, my friend that I referred to a moment ago couldn't be Chief Justice today. He no longer has that keen mind. He no longer has that logic that's so convincing. He no longer has that power of persuasion. It's gone. It's gone. Now, he couldn't plead a case in any court today. He couldn't win an argument anywhere today. He failed to use the talent, and it is gone. It is true at any time. I lived in Macon some years ago, and there was an old colored man that lived over on Fort Hill. He had fallen out of a very valuable piece of property. He lived in a little tumble-down shack in the middle of that piece of property that he owned. A number of business concerns wanted to buy his property at a fabulous price. But he refused to sell, said, I'll never sell a foot of it, I'll keep it for myself. He lived in that little tumble-down shack. He didn't have sufficient food. He sometimes was seen trying to salvage something to eat from garbage cans. One day they found his dead body in his little tumble-down shack where he had died from malnutrition. And his property went to another. He was so anxious to keep it that he lost everything and lost his life along with it. And the property had been developed and been put to great use. Such an easy matter for us to want to hold on to all that we have and fail to commit ourselves to the tasks that we ought to do and fail to commit ourselves to obligations that we ought to assume. Pat and Mike were out fishing. They were out a good ways from land, and a storm came up, and they thought they were never going to be able to reach land. They're real out of sight of land. Finally, Mike said to Pat, you pray while I row. Pat was making his prayer in great earnestness and was making great commitment as to what they would do for the good Lord if he would get them to land. And finally, Mike said, Pat, wait, don't promise too much because I think that I see land now. Such an easy matter for us to imagine that we can steer our own course and manage our own business and hold on to what we have and fail to meet life as we ought to meet life. Now, many of us do the same thing. We hoard what talent that we have, and we blame everybody because we do not have more. We are afraid to meet life and give to it our best, and we live unhappy, desolate lives. Our fate is determined by what we bring into life. It is not hardships that make men fail. It is the surrender of our inner spirits, and this is the tragic illusion of security. When the common man surrenders freedom for security, he always fails. When he cries, the odds are against us, the world owes us a living, we're lost when we come to that. When we pamper ourselves and do not use the talents, something fine goes out of us and goes out of society. I think it was Charlotte Bronte that said it would be better to try all things and find all things empty than to try nothing and leave life a blank. Money hoarded corrupts men. Friendship withheld may turn to hate. When we do not use the vote, we lose the right to vote. If we do not use the opportunity to worship, we lose the desire to worship. If we do not sow the Christian seed, we lose the Christian harvest. Freedom unused is gone. But now there's a positive side to this one-talent man. All are needed in the economy of God. When the body of David Livingstone lay in Westminster Abbey, there was a great stalwart colored man out of the heart of Africa that stood at the head of that casket. Mr. Livingstone's servant. He had brought the body of his master out of the African jungle in his own strong arms, asking for nothing in return but the privilege of rendering service and accompanying the body of his master to his final resting place. Now there was a very vast difference in the ability of David Livingstone and this colored servant. But in the sight of the master they were one, because they both were using the talents that they had to the very best ability. And they were one. Now most of us are ordinary one-talent people, but we can be faithful to our trust, and we will be judged by what we do with what we have. Now the third thing that the lesson teaches us this morning is that it's up to us. We use our opportunities as we will. We have freedom to use them, or we have freedom to bury them. The three men did what they wanted to do. The master gave them the money and left them on their own. The one-talent man was not forced to bury his talent. He did it because he wanted to. Life is like that. We're on our own. We can live selfishly or we can live nobly. We have the talents, we can bury them or we can develop them. But we're held responsible for the way we use them. A man may be great in his powers and never use his powers. He may be very limited and use his powers in such a way that unsuspected avenues open up before him, because he makes the best use of what he has until more is given him and he finds things that he never dreamed of would be his. Life is like that. But if we cry out opportunity all gone, that's the complaint of a small mind and a fearful heart that lacks the spirit of adventure and the spirit to work. But the courageous Son of God even looks for opportunity, and he makes opportunity for adventure. So what can we expect of life? Not handouts, not lucky breaks, not unearned support. But we can expect freedom to prove ourselves as God's children. Jesus gives God's challenge in the lesson this morning to use our opportunities. The 2 and the 5 talent man were not insured. They had no substitute to guarantee a market. They were on their own. We do well to catch their spirit and venture toward the untried horizons. So what can we expect of life? We will be rewarded according to the use that we make of what we have. We will lose what we do not use. And it's up to us to use them as we will, but we are held responsible in the end for what we do with what has been entrusted to us. So my prayer for you is that you'll find life rich and free and full, and you will be rewarded even beyond anything that you might have expected because of the use that you make of what has been given to you.